Hello and welcome to the Agile Innovation Leaders podcast. I'm Ola Ojako. On this podcast, I speak with world-class leaders and doers about themselves and a variety of topics spanning agile, lean innovation, business, leadership, and much more, with actionable takeaways for you, the listener.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Agile Innovation Leaders podcast. My guest today is Bruno Pešec. He is one of those rare innovators and coaches whose focus is on helping business leaders innovate profitably. I had lots of learning moments and aha moments speaking with Bruno, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot as well. I have no doubt that you will also get some useful nuggets from this episode. So enjoy. I have with me here Bruno Pešec. And Bruno, welcome to the Agile Innovation Leaders podcast. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you here on the show.
Thank you very much, Rula. And I also want to give my special gratitude and thanks for perfectly pronouncing my surname.
Oh, well, I am very happy about that. I actually wrote it out, phonetically on a piece of paper, but thanks. You taught me well. Great. Now, let's go straight into the questions we have for you today. So who's Bruno Pešec?
So Bruno Pešec is, I would describe, an innovator, martial artist, and engineer. That probably sums up like parts of my life that I'm proudest and that I engage with the most. So I started my studies as a young engineer, and what I was really fascinated with are problems, wicked problems. Usually wicked problems are described as a collection of problems that don't really have a clear cause, clear root cause, and there is no clear-cut solution. The only thing you can try to do is tame them a little bit. And I was fascinated with that as an engineer. That's why I studied industrial engineering, which is a combination of systems and humans. I started my career in defense, and I had the good fortune of working on some very, very difficult products. And one of the projects that I was working on was an innovation completely based on product and technology. We made such a product that was by far the best in the whole world. It was so good, no one believed us. And it was ridiculous, but for me, it was a great learning experience because, we were a young group of engineers that said like, hey, let's just do everything we can to make the best product we can. And we succeeded, and nobody on the market believed us. So what happened? Our sales department had to send our product on a tour across the globe. And with a lot of engineering products and solutions, they can be copied by sufficiently proficient engineers. And that is what happened after a few years. It wasn't such a leading product anymore. But for me, it was a very important learning lesson because I realized that innovation isn't just about this technical side, but also about human side. You must understand how to talk about innovation. You must understand how narratives form, how stories form, and how people interact. And that is kind of how I started to slowly expand my own knowledge beyond just being an engineer to also investing a lot of time and effort to understand psychology, human nature, emotions, not just through reading, but also to trying to be different myself, whatever they might mean. And it wasn't always pleasant.
I totally empathize. Wow. Could you tell us a bit more about the product? What was the product all about?
So since I was working in the industry, that's very limited with the NDAs. So unfortunately, I cannot go into great specifics. But let's say that innovations were based on the physical properties. And I can say, people expect that the products made out of steel have a specific weight. What we were able to do is through a lot of engineering tricks using numerical simulations, very advanced computation, a lot of testing in actual manufacturing hall, we were able to make a product that has varying thickness of steel panels. And that reduced the weight of the product and increased the functionality of the product. And that's why I say, when a smart engineer sees the solution, they can easily copy it. But the challenge is seeing the solution, coming to see that. So we did the heavy working of finding the new improvement, and then it was easy to take over. And if we connect it to what a lot of companies and startups mess up, when they spend their time and effort to educate the market, and then somebody else comes and actually picks up the market. So that is, when you have the whole discussion, is it good to be first to the market? Yes, if you can afford to capture it.
Yes, very true. Because you have the fast followers who just sit back, let you do the heavy lifting, and then because they have maybe wide range of resources and deep pockets, and they're able to mass manufacture what you'd spent years to put together. Wow.
Exactly.
So what were the key lessons? Because you said you now realize that it's not just about having a fantastic product. You also had to focus on the human side, psychology. So what's different between then and now?
So one of the things, reflecting here in the moment, one of the very important lessons for me personally was that alignment is much more important and valuable than being the most correct person in the room or following the perfect or the ideal process. So for myself, I have a decade of experience innovating and inventing, not just in defense, but also in transportation, in oil and gas, in entertainment, in different industries. And without trying to sound arrogant, I have a good grasp of what it takes to, develop, invent something and take it to the market, which is not necessarily always true. So when I work, with clients or different teams, I'm usually the person who knows the innovation process, but that doesn't matter a lot if I cannot help those people in the room to actually get from A to B. And that sometimes includes, I don't want to say compromises, but negotiations, both internal, implicit, but also external. When do you stop focusing on just the theory, and when do you move to, okay, in practice, being pragmatic and moving on? And I would say that Agile and innovation and lean startup and a lot of these fields, they're guilty of being extremely dogmatic and paradigmatic. And then you have this whole conversation around, okay, when is it about dogma and when is it about flow, customer, value, outcomes? So that to me was part of my learning journey, like sometimes harsh lessons.
I totally am nodding because I experience this every day as an agile coach. It's really about, you might know things, but it's also about working with people, because finally at the end of the day, it's all about people, and you need to work with people. You need to establish the relationship, the trust. And for me, a policy is that I want to work with people in a way that they would want to work with me over and over again. And sometimes it's maybe about losing a battle so that, everyone can together win the greater war, from time to time. One statement you made now that really stood out to me is that alignment is more valuable than being the most correct person in a room. That's a great quote. Okay, so can you tell us about your game, Playing Lean? I understand you developed the game. How did it come about, and what do you currently use it for?
So yes, it's called Playing Lean, and I'd be happy to tell you a bit more. So it's funny. It came through part of this learning experience as well. So I'm not the only one. It was also Simon Fure Jorgensen. He's the guy that actually started it as well. So the starting point was very simple. You have a group of people and you want to introduce a new concept. In this case, it was lean startup. And you know how it will go if you tell to a group of people, well, here is a book, read it, let's talk in a week. So maybe there's one person that reads it, the rest might skim it, and the other third won't even open it. And what we were inspired with was using games. We were actually inspired with the Get Kanban, if you know the game for teaching Kanban in software development. And back in that time, Simon just tried to find a similar game for teaching lean startup, innovation, entrepreneurship, and there was none. And that was the trigger. So it was scratching our own need. And what I love and what I'm the proudest was that we used the lean startup principles to develop the game itself. That was very important to us. And to the listeners that maybe have heard about Lean Startup but aren't as familiar, so Lean Startup is a methodology for developing businesses through experimentation, iterative development, and it basically relies on agile body of knowledge, customer development, and business modeling. So in our case, we decided, after we have iterated a lot on the functionality and the desirability of the game, we decided to go crowdfunding route. And what happened, it was a big failure. So we didn't manage to reach our goal, but when we were reviewing, so it wasn't zero, but it was not enough money to actually take us. So we used Kickstarter as a platform, which is all or nothing. Yes, you must reach the goal, otherwise you receive no funds. But you can see the data. And what we noticed is that the people that were supporting the campaign actually weren't who we thought the players are, but who would use the game to teach Lean Startup. And that is when we realized, hey, our customer segment isn't really the people that will play the game to learn Lean Startup, but our customer segment is actually people like you and me, Ula, that consult and coach and help others. Now, when we realized that, we started focusing, okay, what do these people need? What are their jobs to be done? What is important to them? And then tweak the product. What we learned is, to them, what's really important, that the product is extremely polished. They need to be proud of it. It shouldn't look like, Microsoft Clipboard or clip art, whatever. It needs to look very professional. So we partnered with Holger, who is one of the best illustrators in the world. He illustrated business model generation and other things like that. Okay. So we partnered with him. The game looks spectacular. Okay, then we said it needs to be reputable. So we partnered with Esh Mauria, who wrote Running Lead. We partnered with Alexander Osterwalder, who wrote Business Model Generation and a few other books in the series. That was important. And then what was also the thing is, the facilitators and coaches and consultants, they're not buying the game. They're buying a new product for their coaching or consulting portfolio. Exactly. So our value proposition is the game, plus the facilitating materials, plus the marketing materials, plus everything. So a lot of learning happened in that one failed campaign. And then we kept iterating on that. And they usually say the rest is history. I hope it's still not history. But, we won awards. First game was completely sold out. We made a new one. That one is also almost sold out. We have a global community of 200 facilitators. So it's been going pretty well. And all of that, learning, adjusting.
And you're basically applying the lean startup cycle as well. As you're adjusting, you learn, you take the learning, you adjust, and you make an improvement on what's existing. Exactly. So congratulations. Exactly. Now that's an amazing story. And the fact that you said, the Kickstarter failed, it wasn't a failure, it was more of a redirection, because you now got to focus on your rights, the right customer, the person who needs the product. Yeah. And so I also understand from your website that you sort of run train the trainer sessions on playing lean. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when is your next one? Do you have anyone scheduled in the near future, or should listeners just go to the website and register?
So listeners can go to playinglean.com, and what we decided to do, because of COVID, obviously, and the global situation, so we have a completely self-paced part. So you can take it anytime, and then when you complete it, we schedule. So we have batches of people. So let's say that you immediately go, you hear this show and you go, you can take it, you can listen to all the theory of the Playing Lean facilitator training. And then when there's 4 or 6, we schedule a private session where we play the game together and, let's say finish the training. And we came to that because it's pretty flexible for people. Yeah. And as I said, our customer segments are consultants and coaches. And the thing that they really don't want to is lose their precious billable time.
Yes. And will the follow-up sessions, would they have to be in person, or have you devised a way of doing it virtually?
Yeah. So everything is completely virtual for the time being. So we're using Mural, but yes. Miro or Mural, any of these can work. And what we basically did is we took and we recreated the whole game in that setup. And I was a bit skeptical at first. I wasn't 100% sure that, it would work in such a setting, because so it is a board game. Playing Lean is a physical board game, and we purposefully designed it to be physical. Before all this happened, we rejected to make it digital, because there's a special connection when you're doing that together.
Things, yeah.
Exactly. And so I wasn't sure if we move it online, but people were asking so much, like they want to play, they want to attend it. So we said, okay, let's give it a try. And what we actually found out was that it works in some cases better and in some worse. So one thing that you lose is people cannot talk at the same time. I'm sure that everybody noticed that now with all Zoom and Teams and all the meetings, it's very difficult. You cannot talk at the same time, which does happen in physical meetings. You might have small groups of people either whispering or saying something. Here, that doesn't work. So you must facilitate and arrange everything differently. You can have breakouts, but again, you cannot see it as a facilitator. Yeah. When you coach team, if you tell two of them have a discussion, you can slightly over here,
yes,
now you lose that. So there are some challenges in this, but I'm pleasantly surprised, thinking back 10 years ago, how many digital tools we have today, and they're good. They work.
True. I mean, that's why we're speaking, although we're in different geographical locations. So yeah, definitely. Right. So I know that you also recently published an ebook, 9 Big Don'ts of Corporate Innovation, How to Spot and Avoid Costly Innovation Mistakes. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
I'd love to. So the starting point for this were something that's usually called survivor bias. And I'll just share 2 stories to kind of illustrate this survivor bias. And
Please.
finally, both include aviation. So in one cases, aeroplane inspectors, so whatever is their formal title, were investigating plane crashes and survivals. And what they noticed was that it wasn't the most important how physically prepared people in the plane were. It didn't matter if they are obese or if they are healthy, unhealthy, or whatnot. The only thing that mattered was if people stopped to take their belongings before evacuating the plane. So everybody who stopped to try to get their, things from overhead department perished. And that is why you always hear that boring message back in the time when we were flying much more often, take oxygen first in case of evacuation, ignore your belongings, go out. And they discovered that by focusing on all those that perished, not those that actually did manage to run out and escape before the plane caught fire. A similar story, but from wartime, was when they were looking into reinforcing fighter crafts. So they were charting, when the crafts returned, they were charting all the holes on the body of the plane. And then their initial idea was to focus on all the parts where the holes were. But one guy observed and said, no, that's wrong, because those planes returned. Let's take a look where there are no holes, because where there are no holes, those planes did not return. And then they reinforced that, and that increased the survivability of planes. So it's almost like inversion of thinking. And that survivor bias at the core is, hey, sometimes there is value in looking at all those that failed and understanding why did that fail, and avoiding the things that they were doing. And that was the logic. That was something that started me here. So I work with hundreds of innovators, with I cannot say hundreds of companies, but when you work with a large company, it's easily several hundred people. And definitely. I continuously see the same mistakes again and again and again. And I said, it's not about trying to copy Amazon or Google or whoever you think is the most innovative company in the world. Stop, pause, and take a look at all the failed innovations. And that was kind of the trigger. That is, so from experience and observation, I decided to share 9. I will not go into great details of all 9 because everybody who listens to this can get the ebook for free. In your show notes, they will be able to find it. If not, they can reach out to you, to me, whoever, we're gonna help them. But one that I want to share with your listeners is one of maybe a little bit shocking ones that I say is, don't invest in orphan ideas. And what do I mean by that is, ideas by themselves are worthless. We keep hearing that, but we don't take action on that. So an idea doesn't come out of nowhere. Someone must have recommended it. And on a management level, a common mistake is when, let's say, there's a group or strategy retreat and they hire some consultant, they come up with brilliant ideas, but they don't execute on it. They give it to someone else to do it. So there's a discrepancy. There is this idea who came from Ula, but suddenly it was thrown to Bruno, go do it. I never met Ula in my life. I'm supposed to be passionate about this. Innovation
exactly.
is
you
difficult.
Don't know the context behind the whole idea. How did it come about? But no, these things happen, and I'm thinking of a recent example.
No, but it is something that resonates, and people are aware of it, but they don't think about it this way, and then they don't realize how damaging this is. And especially so I don't want to sugarcoat it. Innovation in a large company is a very painful process. It is very punishing on people. It's very rarely rewarding. And people that do deal with innovation in companies, they don't do it to get tapped on the back. They do it because they derive pleasure from it. They derive joy from it. But that does not mean that they shouldn't be rewarded.
Yeah.
But those people that are like that, they are rare. So usually, I see that happen again and again. A company decides, we want to be innovative. Everybody, there's a training for everybody in a company, and we will have like a big company meeting from today on. You must be innovative, and it's forced down the throat. And suddenly, people, you must work on this project. It's very difficult. It's difficult to force people to go through such pain for nothing.
Like you said, innovation, it's not something you force down people's throats. It has to align with their intrinsic motivation. And I believe it was Daniel Pink that wrote the book, Drive, about what motivates people. And at the very least, they have to know what's in it for them, which goes back to, your earlier statement about you're dealing with human beings. You need to understand the psychology. How do you get people's buying? How do you make sure that they want to do it, even if you're not there watching them? Yeah. So you've shared one of the don'ts, which is don't invest in orphans. Do you want to share maybe 1 or 2 more of those don'ts in corporate innovation?
So the last one, don't make how much time, effort, and money you have spent so far guide your decision. That is also a very common one. It happens to all of us in private life, in business life. I'm sure you experienced it as well. When you're sitting there, the project isn't going as it should be going. And then somebody says, well, we've been going at this for 2 years. We spent, so much money. We hired people for this. Let's keep on doing it. And if that is your only reason to keep on doing it, I'm sorry. This probably doesn't have a very bright future. And the same goes for innovation projects in companies. After some time, you should just cut the losses. It's kind of, if you've spent 2 years and there's no traction in the market, it's just not attracting attention. It's better, to stop leaking more funds. And even worse than that is people's time. As far as we know, time goes in only one direction. We can make money again. But to me, especially in large companies, what every leader has is additional responsibility for the time of their employees. The most disrespectful thing you can do is waste somebody's time. It happens, unfortunately, often because people don't understand that it's happening. But when you walk into a room and you tell to someone that they've spent 2 years on something that's at a dead end, what you did, you threw away 2 years of their life. They could have been doing something else.
True. And there's nothing more demoralizing than, you're going on a road that's a dead end and everybody knows it, but nobody wants to say, are we actually headed in the right direction? And there's a phrase, and like this is in the scaled agile framework, which is one of the popular scaling agile frameworks. One of the principles there is to ignore sunk costs, and that's basically you don't base decisions for the future based on how much time, money, effort, resources that you've put into it. You have to evaluate it based on the results you're getting. Are you getting the outcomes? I mean, if you had made a hypothesis, has the hypothesis been validated or not? If it's not been validated and you're getting your indications are contrary to what you expected, it's either you pivot or you kill it. You don't just go on for sentimental reasons. So no, great one. Yeah. Do you want to add anything else about your ebook? Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, we could probably go for several hours discussing everything in it. What I can just say is that besides just discussing these different don'ts, I also offer specific countermeasures. So that is something. For example, for the sunk cost, I completely agree with what you shared. Unfortunately, the side effect is if you run into someone that doesn't want to see exactly how you describe it, so you're like, no, that experiment wasn't done correctly, or I wasn't involved in that hypothesis, then one easy countermeasure is to immediately agree on the spot. Okay, I see, I understand that you're very involved, that your ego is in this. So let's make an agreement right here, right now. What is it? What terms are we giving to this? What terms are we giving to this to continue? So for example, this is a real one, but I'm removing the details because of confidentiality. With one executive, he had exactly that problem. He was working on something for 3 years, and he was afraid that if he would stop this, that his career would suffer as well. So what we sat down was with his management team, and we said, okay, we are not now ready to immediately kill it, even though we have spent so much. But we are going to give it exactly 3 more months, and A, B, and C, if that happens, it continues. As clear as that, signed by everybody, not for legal reasons, but for psychological reasons. I put my name on this. I commit to these terms. 3 months later, they killed it. We didn't even discuss it for 5 minutes. It was, this is what we said. It didn't happen. Bam. I was shocked. I was shocked how easy that went. So that is, an easy one, because people need to own that. I cannot tell people go and kill it. They must say it. They must see it. Like, oh, we really should stop this.
Exactly. And there's something about a public commitment as well. It kind of, makes it easier for all parties involved. There's a rational reason for killing it or a rational reason for stopping an initiative, if that makes sense. Now, I'm going to ask you a question as a you teach innovation and entrepreneurship. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been asked to coach, maybe a team or a particular area? So you have like the leadership buy-in and you've been asked to coach the team, but the team are kind of a bit closed to getting input from you. If so, what have, could you share with the audience what you've done to win them over and get them to actually get to a point where they are seeking and actively drawing your input into what they're doing?
So I had that happen both at the management level and at the team level. So in one case, I walked in with a team, and the guy immediately told me as I walked through the door, Bruno, this is bullshit. I'm here just because I was commanded to be here. You have 3 minutes. And I just completely ignored him. I just looked at him. I was like, okay. So, and started the discussion. Why are we here? What do we want to get? In my case, I usually try to avoid confrontation in that sense, because people they have the right to be frustrated. Like if they have really been commanded and just said, you be here, it's kind of, I might recognize that and say, okay, I understand that. I'm not here to do innovation theater. So I don't, how could I say? I don't really do trainings. Like when I'm brought in, I do very specific things. So in this case, I'm really relying a lot on my background as engineer, because they can see that I'm one of them in most of the cases. So I'm not like a manager or a sales guy or something like that. I'm very curious. I'm curious about their work. And this is where we start. We start talking about their specific product or service, understanding that, and I just let them talk. And that's the easiest one. It's kind of, I'm not there to be smarter than them. I'm there because I'm good at the part of the process, and together we are going to figure out what needs to be achieved. And sometimes they have very strong feelings. I know exactly what needs to be done, but no one in management is listening to me. And then I go, okay, I'm here. I'm listening to you now. Share. And we just start from there. And people usually do have, and it's great starting points. So they will say, this product sucks because of A, B, and C. What needs to happen is X, Y, and Z. And then I start probing, is like, okay, the things that you said that it sucks, why is that so? Okay, and you say that this will be a solution, why do you think so? And I ask them, we have a whiteboard, we start mapping it. If we don't, we have this conversation, we start going on the very specific things, because what I strongly believe in is go harsh on problems, go harsh on issues, but be gentle with people. So if you and I will always have my utmost respect for Ula, but when we have a problem in front of us, when I go harsh, I'm not going harsh at Ula, I'm going harsh at that problem.
Don't take it personal.
Exactly. I want to rip that problem apart. That's our job as innovators. You have an idea. It's not about kissing that idea on the cheek. It's about breaking it, seeing, what if we do this? Is it going to hold? What if we do this? Is it going to hold? What if we do that? Is it still going to hold? If not, well, maybe this is worth doing. This has nothing to do with you as a person. You and I, we are in a partnership about solving that problem, that issue. And for me, it works because it's genuine and people can feel that. So I'm being authentic. I'm being myself. And that is why I also say when people ask me, okay, Bruno, how can I coach like you? How can I, repeat the same thing? I tell them, don't try to copy it. I am me, you are you. Play to your strength. If you're a quiet person, if you're a gentle person, play to that. Be like water, be like river, wear them out, wear them out with kindness. Always go back to what you're discussing. Be yourself. It's so tiring trying to be somebody else. It's so tiring trying to copy somebody else. It won't always work, but you will know that you were yourself. You did the best you could. What's then there to regret, even if it goes bad?
True. I'm beginning to get suspicious that you've been eavesdropping on me, because I recently this week gave a talk on being yourself and being that perfectly. So it's almost like, did Bruno eavesdrop on my speech? But hey, yeah, well said. Now let's just round up with a few more questions. This has been a fantastic conversation. I definitely have enjoyed speaking with you. Are there any books that you'd say you've drawn inspiration over the course of your career? And if so, what books are these? If you can share.
Since the topics we have discussed today were about innovation and a little bit of thinking better, I'll share 3 specific books. So one for innovation, that is The Corporate Startup by Dan Toma, Esther Gons, and Tendai Vicky. It is a great book. It's currently, I would say, one of the best books on both innovation practice and innovation management. So I would definitely recommend it to everybody. It's a bit thick, but you get actually 2 books in one. And another one, because to me, both lean, agile, innovation, they're all means to an end. If they become an end in itself, then that's when they become dogmatic.
Yes.
And what ties them all together is, strategy. And the book I would heartily recommend, I would say it's a bit underappreciated, is Game-Changing Strategies from Constades Marquides. It's a great book. So he's a professor from London Business School, I think, or London School of Economics. I don't know. I keep mixing them. And he writes very well for an academic. It's easy to consume, a lot of examples. He makes business model innovation come to life. It's not just some theory, but it's specific examples. And for me, it's great because it shows you how to adapt. it doesn't have a lot of models or anything. So it's more like looking at it and seeing, okay, this worked, this didn't work. What's my case? And the third one, to better thinking. So one great thing I read was that employees can make a bad CEO look great. So employees can make anything work. Bad decisions, bad management policies, if they want to, they will make it work. At the same time, employees can also make the best strategies and policies go to nothing if they want to sabotage them. So the last book is more on, I would say, managers and leaders, and it's the halo effect from Phil Rosenzweig. What he talks about is exactly like what I mentioned with the survivor bias, but he talks about different views. Let's say that the gist of his book is by focusing on those perfect leaders with their halo, you become blinded. And leaders themselves become blinded because they get confused, because they think that it is their ingenuity that created the result and not the employees and their skill. And, was Steve Jobs the one who created everything? No. He definitely had some things that were good. He had some things that were horrible, but he had great people around it. They didn't come out of nowhere, obviously. You could say the same for Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, all the people that we consider are, look at that person, the halo around them.
Yeah.
The risk for every leader and manager is to get deluded by their own success. And it's a lovely short book that will show you all these biases and delusions that can happen. I'll stop here. I think 3 books are enough.
I've had the corporate startup on my reading list, but the other one, Game Changing Strategy, The Halo Effect, definitely have gone on to my my reading list already, which is already like this long. So thanks for sharing those. Now, how can the audience reach you? How can the audience reach you, Bruno? Are you online on social media?
So I write a lot about innovation, strategy, experimentation, entrepreneurship as well. You can find all of that on my website, www.pec.no. It will be in your show notes as well.
Yes.
And you can find there, I publish a lot of free resources, templates, sessions like this, webinars, writings, an ebook, etc. So you can find everything there. Okay. I invite everybody who would like to connect on LinkedIn as well. But if you do, then please just drop, Ula sends me.
well, more like I listened to your episode on the podcast and I'm reaching out. Okay.
They can make it as detailed as they wish.
Okay.
So keeping it simple. That is where I share everything, and it's open and free, and I'm happy to share. If you heard something in this conversation, please reach out to Ula or reach out to me if you would like any questions or any specific materials or whatever.
Sounds great, Bruno. Thanks for that. Now, any final words for the audience before we wrap this up?
Well, before the audience,
yes.
For you, thank you very much. This has been a great conversation. Very engaging. So thank you for creating this atmosphere and making this very easy conversation. I enjoyed it so much. I would be surprised.
I did as well.
If the listeners don't take a little bit of our energy and conversation. And to the listeners, I just have one thing. So you heard today a lot of stuff. There's a lot of great stuff to hear from others, Ula's episodes. But the most important thing is start immediately today. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take just one thing from today and immediately discuss it tomorrow with a peer or yourself. Just one thing. It doesn't matter what. Just immediately try it out. One step at a time. And, a year from now, you will look back and see what an amazing year you had. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just start.
Fantastic. Wow, that's very inspirational. I'm motivated to just go and conquer the world right now, Bruno. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope you'd want to come back, another time for us to have another conversation on this show. So thank you so much, Bruno. And yeah.
Thank you, Ula. Would be lovely.
You're great.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for listening. If you like this show,
do subscribe at www.agileinnovationleaders.com. That's agileinnovationleaders.com, or your favorite podcast provider. Also share with friends and do leave a review on iTunes. This would help others find this show. I'd also love to hear from you, so please drop me an email at ola@agileinnovationleaders.com. Take care and God bless.